Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As ever, we start with the dua. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone who has joined us, mashallah. We've got a healthy number of 60 on today's session, the 13th session that we've been holding now for the past few months, especially during lockdown. We have, as you can see here, a special guest that we managed to rope in at the start of the week with the help of his son, alhamdulillah, AbdurRaheem Green, who will today be talking to us about the dangers of social media, particularly geared towards the youth, because I can't see many of us older folk with the great grey beards on social media as much as the younger ones, but you never know. AbdurRaheem Green's kind of looking at me weirdly there, but we'll see. Just before we kick off the talk, inshallah, just to remind you, chat facility is available at the bottom. Feel free to send messages on there and we'll fire questions at the Ustad at the end of the session. Alternatively, if you don't want to do that, you can WhatsApp me and Khalid, inshallah, and we'll do the same again. We'll do our best to filter the questions and raise the ones that are most relevant to the Ustad because of the constraints of time that we have. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't raise those questions. Please do so because it just helps with the interactive nature of the session. Khalid told me to remind everyone that we are slightly behind in the recordings that have been uploaded onto YouTube. We're about 3 talks behind, but they will be done, inshallah, over the weekend. And from a personal view and a viewpoint, again, Jazakallah khair for your messages about me recovering from COVID and whilst I was ill. Please make dua for everybody else whose family members, friends, people that they know who have been inflicted with this virus. And may Allah give them all shifa. I will move now the mic to Ustad AbdurRaheem Green, who will kick off, and I will see you in about half an hour or so, inshallah.
Yeah, good. Half an hour is about right. So, Jazakallah khair for joining us, everybody. I hope you find this beneficial. I'm going to be talking about, as you know already, the potential harmful effects of social media. And there's a huge amount to cover in this topic, right? And there's no way I'm going to cover all of it. There's some things that I really recommend anybody to watch or to, have a look at. And some of those things there's quite a few videos out there on YouTube and so on and so forth. And those videos it's very...
You're muted.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me now, guys? Yeah? Okay, so let me start again. That was just embarrassing.
It's only for the last few seconds.
Sheikh, you're muted again. Sheikh, you keep dropping off.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Okay, let me start again. So, like I was saying, guys, there's a few videos that, it's really worth watching. For example, I really recommend everybody watches on Netflix, if you've got it, The Social Dilemma. You must have watched it already. I really guess you must have watched that. If you haven't, it's really, very important, I think, that you watch it because it will help contextualize some of the things that I'm going to be saying today. And there's also quite a few interviews with people who are founders of like famous social media platforms. And these guys are literally, it's like they're making public tawbah. They are literally, repenting on camera for the things that they've done. And basically the long and the short of it is that social media has been purposefully made to create an addiction, to make it almost irresistible for you to go onto social media and to stay on social media. And the whole thing is it's quite insidious. It's really dangerous. It's really worrying when you think about it, to the degree to which it can manipulate and control the way that you think and the way that you behave. So anyway, listen, the first thing, brothers and sisters, is this may be really obvious and you've probably heard it so many times. So I'm really apologizing if this like, oh, how many times have I heard this? But, you know, before we even talk about social media, right? And the dangers of social media, it is really important just to remind ourselves what life is about. Why are we here on this planet? What's it all for? Because ultimately, social media is really connected to what we do with our time, how we behave, what we are doing with ourselves. And so we have to go back and remind ourselves, like, why are we here? What's it all for? And as we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that Allah has not created the human beings and the jinn except to worship him, to know him. That is what life is about. That is what we are here for. That is the purpose of our existence. This is what it is all about from our perspective as Muslims. And we have to remember that. We have to keep reminding ourselves about that, because ultimately, if something is not helping to bring us closer to Allah, it is going against what we are ultimately hoping and aiming to achieve as an objective of our existence. And so the point is that some things, it's like, you know, you're going to be swimming up the current. If you're trying to achieve something, you're trying to reach a goal and you're trying to reach a destination, and you keep driving in the opposite direction, you're not going to reach your goal and you're not going to reach your destination. So it's very important that, therefore, we need to filter everything we do. Everything we do, the way we think, the decisions we made, everything needs to pass through a filter. And that filter is the Quran and the Sunnah. That filter is the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. So we need to filter what we do, how we spend our time, the way that we live through this filter of the Quran and Sunnah. So what stays behind, what remains in our life, is the things that we need and the things that we want. And the stuff that passes out, goes through the filter, that's the stuff we don't want. That's the stuff that we need to get rid of. We need to constantly keep applying this filter to ask ourselves, what is the value? What is the benefit of this? I personally have benefited immensely from social media. I will be honest with you that I make my living from social media at the moment, alhamdulillah. And, you know, it's proved a great benefit for me. But there is no doubt that it has many, many dangers. And it doesn't even matter what your intention is. It doesn't even matter what you are doing it for. Some of these dangers apply across the board. So I want to look at it from two perspectives. I want to look at social media from the perspective of being a consumer first, and then I want to look at social media from the perspective of being a producer. This is just a very, very quick overview. So a consumer is just somebody who is obviously someone who is just using social media in a very passive way. They are a consumer. Most of what they do is consuming information on social media, for example, right? So what are the dangers of social media from the point of view of being a consumer? The first and most obvious danger is, how are we spending our time? Time is a very, very precious resource. Arguably, it's one of the most precious resources of all, but it is something that, unfortunately, brothers and sisters, we do not think of it like that. We do not take care of our time. We waste our time, which is it's one of the worst types of waste that you can, one of the worst types of waste. Can you do waste? I don't know. One of the most wasteful things that you can have is in respect to your time, maybe even more than money. Money, in a sense, you can recuperate, right? Money, you can possibly make more of it. Time, you can't. It's, that's it. We are numbered nights and days, brothers and sisters. That's all. We're like you have a set number of nights and days. Everyone is gone. That's your one knocked off of your number. You've got no way to make that time up. So utilizing our time effectively, spending our time well, managing our time is extremely important. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, make use of 5 before 5. Make use of 5 things before 5. So one of the things is make use of your time, your free time before you get busy, and make use of your good health before you get sick, and make use of your life before your death, and make use of your wealth before your poverty. Is that 5? I don't know. But the main thing is, one of the things that you should make use of is your time. Make good use of it. Don't look at this lockdown in a negative sense. In many ways, you have an unprecedented opportunity to use your time in a very, very productive way. Honestly, I am extremely busy from the moment I get up until the moment I go to sleep. Not every minute I spend is doing useful stuff. I do relax, I'll go for a walk. I'll, spend some time doing relaxing things, but most of my time is doing something productive. I might be learning a new language. I might be reading some important information. I am spending a lot of time building up new skills. You may think at my age, like, what skills? But no, I mean skills that are important, things that I think could be beneficial. Okay, so you have, and the access that we have to information, to courses, to things that we can learn, it's unprecedented, brothers and sisters. The problem with social media, and I found this myself a few years ago when I was trying to develop an online course. And this online course that I ended up developing is on willpower. I think it's a really, really beneficial, useful course. And I did it as like a paid thing that people pay to use this course. But I was really struggling to actually get this course, to actually do it, to actually film it, to actually write the script and film it. And the reason was social media. I was wasting so much of my time. I would sit down in the morning and have, that my intention was to start doing something. And I would find that half the day had gone and all I was doing is looking at this news item on Facebook, scrolling through this, scrolling through that, literally wasting a lot of my time because most of the stuff was not really that valuable. So that's the first danger, brothers and sisters, and it's like I said in the beginning, it is designed to be addictive. It's designed to make it really hard for you to put down. It's actually designed to trigger dopamine. And dopamine is something that drives you towards what you believe is going to be beneficial. So that it doesn't, by the way, it doesn't mean it will be beneficial. Dopamine drives you to what you imagine is going to bring you some type of happiness, that you imagine is going to bring you some type of, anyway, I did a talk on this on my YouTube channel. You can find it, dopamine addiction. I don't want to go deeply into it. If you want to interested in that, you can find that discussion. But it's literally designed, these social media channels are designed to trigger your dopamine. Something I didn't mention in that talk is that they actually, what they did is they did this experiment with mice. And they basically put some implants into the brains of mice. And that when they pressed a particular button, when the rats pressed a particular button, it would activate the dopamine in their brain. And these rats just kept running to these buttons. Some of them kept doing it. They just kept pressing it until they died. They even created an electric grid, which when these rats went across this grid, it fried their feet, gave them electric shock, even burnt their feet off. And they still used their legs without feet to get to this trigger, to keep pressing this trigger, to get this surge of dopamine. Dopamine doesn't actually give you pleasure. It's not a pleasure chemical, as some people wrongly say. It drives you towards what you think is going to make you happy. And so this is what these little buttons and these little red signs and these little symbols and these messages, and that's what social media is designed to do. It's designed to make you addicted. And it's mostly 99% of it a waste of time. You're like rats, just triggering this dopamine. This on its own is one of the most negative, dangerous things about social media. It's a waste of time, brothers and sisters. 99% of it is a waste of time. And that itself is something very dangerous, very damaging, very disadvantageous, right? The other thing about it, brothers and sisters, is what are we looking at? Most of the time, what are we looking at? This is very important that you understand, is the things that you look at, the things that you spend your time looking at. That is what it's like. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, be careful who you take as your friends, because you will take your deen, you will take your religion from your friends. Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that everybody is born upon fitrah. It's only your parents that make you a Jew or a Christian or a Magyar. What this shows us is that the environment in which we live, in which we are brought up, influences the way that the things that we believe. So it's the same thing with social media. What are you looking at? Most of the time, what we are looking at in social media is a very unrealistic view of the world. It's a very curated view of the world. People look extra perfect. They look like they're extra happy. They look like they are in constantly amazing places doing amazing things. Now, the thing is, brothers and sisters, what does this do? Two things. Number one, what does it drive us towards? What ambition does it create within us? What mindset does it create in us? Most of the time, it is driving us towards seeking some type of adventure, some type of satisfaction, some type of satiation of our desires in this world. And that is totally misleading. That goes against where we began. What is the purpose of life? Life is a test. Life is a battle to conquer your nafs. And most of this stuff on social media is doing the opposite. It's feeding your nafs. It's feeding your desires. It's feeding your very most base instincts, brothers and sisters, right? So, be careful who you take as your friends. If you spend a lot of time on social media, it will begin to indoctrinate you. It will begin to form the ideas that you have about what you think reality is, about the expectations that you have, about what you begin to think you should be doing with your life. And that will turn into actions. That will formulate actions. And those actions will become habits. And those habits, it makes you what you are. Your habits really make you what you are, brothers and sisters. Most of what we do is based on habits. So this is the other problem with social media. It is literally like we are brainwashing ourselves. Unless, of course, we are, on social media, we are following, various Quranic things and Islamic reminders and so on and so forth. Of course, from that perspective, it could be immensely positive. And of course, there's no doubt that social media has many, many possible and potential hugely positive uses. It really, like anything, brothers and sisters, it depends what you use it for. It depends what you use it for. So, people, to go back to myself, people say, oh, Facebook is fitna book and this and that, which I never really understood, because most of the stuff that I've got from Facebook, for example, is very positive and very informative. Apart from perhaps wasting a lot of time, you can end up reading article after article after article, because it just takes you down a rabbit hole, right? But that's not necessarily always a bad thing. But again, sometimes I find myself wasting a lot of time and not getting stuff done what I want to do. But I have had experiences. For example, everyone was going on about TikTok, so I downloaded TikTok. I just it was horrific. It was like, I'll be honest, it was nothing except I just couldn't understand. It was just people dancing, mostly scantily clad girls dancing. I didn't understand, what the hell is this? What is there in this TikTok that I didn't see any benefit in it whatsoever. I deleted that pretty quickly from my phone. I just didn't understand what was the benefit. So I can see some social media people said, no, you have to choose to follow the right people and so on and so forth, right? Just like you do on Instagram, you just don't follow their recommendations. But anyway, I found it a real waste of time. People have told me other stuff. A lot of it is really just a waste of time. But I guess, again, it just depends how you use it, brothers and sisters. It depends how you utilize it. It's a tool like anything else. But I'm just, generally reminding you of stuff. I'm sure you already know this anyway. I'm not telling you anything new, right? I think the other thing that's very important is, this whole thing of curated images, these Instagrammers who live this seemingly perfect life. One of the problems with this as well is that it contradicts what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam advised us when he said, look to those people who are below you in terms of worldly possessions and so on and so forth. Look at people who are not as good looking as you. Look at people who are not as rich as you. Look at people who don't have as nice a car as you, who don't have a nicer house as you, or don't have as, awesome sneakers or whatever it is that look at the people who have less than you. Why? Because that will make you grateful to Allah for what you've got. It will produce within you gratitude, and gratitude is one of the two wings through which you are going to reach your destination, with which you are going to journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's so important, because from gratitude to Allah develops true love for Allah, and with that gratitude and that love, this is how you develop a strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who are grateful. So my brothers and sisters, being grateful is so important. So anything that drives you away from that, anything that has the potential, and so many people unfortunately are ungrateful, even though Allah has given them so much. This is one of the characteristics of people in the West, of rich countries. They have so much, but they are so ungrateful to God, to Allah. Yet at the same time, you go to somewhere like I have been, you go to the poorest countries in the world, Burundi, Malawi, for example. I've been to places like that. People are so grateful for the smallest things, subhanAllah, and they have so little. So unfortunately, one of the things that social media does is it can definitely make you feel ungrateful to Allah. Even though you have so much, really, compared to most people, you feel like you have nothing. That is very dangerous, because ultimately it drives you, brothers and sisters, towards what? Towards kufr, because that's what ingratitude is, kufr. So that is the dangers of social media from the point of being a consumer. Those are some of the things I wanted to mention. Now I want to mention something as being a producer, and how much better it is to be a producer, to be someone who is creative, someone who is doing something. But even there, brothers and sisters, it is fraught with dangers. And obviously, the most dangerous thing is that you are looking for likes. Like, why do most people want to become an influencer? Why do most people go onto YouTube, go onto Instagram? They're looking for likes. They're looking for fame. And that itself is something extremely dangerous and extremely damaging. I mean, if you are looking for fame, what is the intention? What is the purpose? Why do you want to be famous, brothers and sisters? Why do you want to be known? What do you think you are going to achieve from it? This, needs some deep introspection. And it's connected to what we mentioned previously. Because, we imagine that people who are famous and people who are known, they have access to all of those things that we believe that we want and that we believe what we need. Famous people seem to have access to it. They have admiration, they have the beautiful partners, the wealth comes to them, people listen to them, they have influence. All of these things, of course, are extremely tempting for us to run after. Very tempting, brothers and sisters, right? So, but in reality, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that two wolves set amongst the flock of sheep do less damage than the love of fame and fortune do to a believer. Think about that. Imagine two wolves running amok amongst the flock of sheep, killing, slaughtering. The love for wealth and fame, yeah, they are more damaging to our iman, more damaging to our faith than that. Why? Because, brothers and sisters, our intention should be to seek the pleasure of Allah. If we want to be famous, we should be famous with Allah. If we want to be liked, it should be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us. If we want to be mentioned, it should be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions us amongst the angels. That is what we should be looking for. That is what we should be seeking for. Those are the likes and the accolades and the praises that we should be aiming for, brothers and sisters, right? Because most people, what do? They love each other for the things of this world. We should be loving for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the things of this world and loving for the things of this world ultimately are useless. They will not benefit us when we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. So it's very damaging, brothers and sisters. You can understand from a instinctive, psychological perspective, from a nafsi perspective, of course, just like, we like to eat and drink. Fame has all of those connections that massages our ego. But that's the problem, brothers and sisters. That's what it is. It all becomes about the ego. But surely the whole battle of life is the battle against your nafs. That's what it is. You're battling our nafs. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Successful is the one who purifies it, and destroyed is the one who corrupts it. Meaning what? Your nafs, yourself. So purifying ourselves is one of the prime objectives of the way of life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Part of the purpose of our life is purifying our nafs and keeping it on as-siratul mustaqim. So, brothers and sisters, you see, being even a creator, because that's what you're doing. You're searching for the likes. And then even, brothers and sisters, now even when you do this in order with a good intention, so you may start doing this. You may go on social media, aiming to do something good, aiming to spread Islamic knowledge, aiming to do something good. Your intention can start off very well, but unfortunately the nature of social media, and I even know brothers who are well known on social media who have admitted that they do certain things and they say certain things and they behave in a certain way only to get likes, only to get clicks, just to create clickbait, even though they realize it's extremely controversial, even sometimes potentially damaging. And this is part of the problem, brothers and sisters, because even when you become established on social media, and this is something I found myself, is that you have to make some sort of compromises. You're not always finding that you are able to say the things that you want to say, or you have to say it in a different way, or there's certain things that maybe you would like to talk about, but you feel you can't, because that would damage it would not necessarily damage your reputation with Muslims or whatever, but you could get banned or something like that. I'm not talking about anything here, really bad in any way, shape or form. I'm just talking about things that could be potentially hugely controversial. And that can be very problematic, brothers and sisters. It can be. There's no doubt about that. So everything comes, brothers and sisters, with its pros and cons. Even if you have a good intention and you want to become like a creator on social media, it has many benefits. No doubt you can do many good and amazing things. But even then, you have to be very, very careful about constantly checking your intentions. And there are people who started off with good intentions, but unfortunately, they didn't end up in the right place at all, because they kept on making compromises. And I'm sure a lot of you are aware of, for example, hijabi influencers, my hijab journey. They became famous for wearing hijab, and then they took it off. When they got more and more followers and more likes, and they took it off because, you know, they started getting attention from other areas. They started getting sponsorship. They started getting pressure to conform to other norms. And unfortunately, this is what happened, right? So brothers and sisters, even just starting off and doing something with a good intention, it still has dangers. So brothers and sisters, I hope that's like a small summary for you of some of the dangers of social media. I'm sure none of this is particularly new. You know, all of it is fairly obvious. I don't think there's any particular insights that you couldn't have figured out for yourself. But you know what? It's a good reminder for myself and a good reminder for you as well, inshallah. And may Allah help us and keep us on his straight path. آمين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وجزاك الله خير.
Very insightful talk. The messages have come through on WhatsApp. So what I'll do, inshallah, is go through them one by one, and we'll have your answers, inshallah. The first thing I wanted to ask you is that we are seeing these days, I say these days, over the past few years, young boys, our young men, suffering from things like body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
At one stage seemed to be simply assigned to young sisters, older sisters. But boys now having chosen to go on things like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok are seeing all these beefy guys, you know, buffed up, doing boxing, doing whatever. And unfortunately, going down this route where they will not eat or will overeat or will eat a certain type of food, etc., which causes them more harm than good. What advice would you give those kids about the effects of all of this on them and their lifestyle that they choose to take?
I mean, it's difficult. It's good to be healthy. It is good to be healthy, and it's good to want to lead a healthy lifestyle. And no doubt that many of us are not like that. We don't lead healthy lifestyles. And unfortunately, many people are overweight. They are inactive. But that doesn't mean, on the other hand, that, you know, you need to conform to some particular image or some particular body type, right? That is in many cases unrealistic. Some of it's just that you have to understand that it's a product of genetics. Some people look like that because that's their genes. You're never going to look like that. It's just not going to happen. So I think, again, it comes back to what I was saying right at the beginning. If you keep on looking at these images and you keep on buying into this, you know, this idea of this is how you're supposed to look, then unfortunately, this is going to be the ultimate end and the ultimate consequence. That's really what it is, right? And it may sound like a cliche, but honestly, it is way more important what your character is. It is so way more important that you are kind and caring and loving and considerate, and you're a decent human being. And it sounds like a cliche, but it really is actually true. It really is actually true. It doesn't matter at the end of the day how buff your body is if you're an idiot. It really doesn't. I can give you some, I know some, you know, very close examples to myself of, you know, of brothers who have just got this totally wrong. So it's a very difficult one. I don't really have any, you know, instant advice or instant solution. It's all part of the wider problem, isn't it? It goes really back to what I said. If you're going to keep on exposing yourself to these images and allowing yourself to believe that this is the way that you're, then what really body dysmorphia is ultimately what? Ultimately what? It's ingratitude. It's ingratitude. You are ungrateful to Allah for the way He has made you. You want to be something other than what you are. You fail to appreciate the bounties and the blessings. What are you doing? You're looking at someone who is better than you instead of looking at those people who are less fortunate than you. So you've gone down that wrong path, and that's it. What can I say? That's the consequences. What you sow, you reap. chickens coming home to roost. That's it. I mean, you know, it sounds cruel and it sounds harsh, but you've allowed yourself to think like that. You've allowed yourself to go down that path. You've created within yourself an attitude, an ungratitude attitude instead of a gratitude attitude. And that's the consequence of your action, right? So the solution is to remind yourself of the bounties and the blessings and how many different ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you. This is what you need to do. And keep away from, you know, don't allow yourself to look at those things that are going to create that feeling of ingratitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah khair. I've got another question here. Someone's asked, what can the Shaykh say about the spiritual impact of putting your image out there online, as in photos, where you are, the holidays you're taking, and the evil this will attract? Is it even permissible?
You know, it just depends, brothers and sisters. Yes, I definitely think it's permissible to do it. Why would it not be permissible? But a lot of these things just depend upon your intention. What are you trying to achieve by it? You have to think about that. I think, you know, maybe there's a difference between what you share with your friends and your family and why you share it with them. You know, I love to know, like, I mean, for me, for a lot of my family, that's the way I keep in touch with them. If they're not on social media, I don't really know what people are doing. I mean, I'm talking about my family and my friends, right? So that's how I keep in touch with them. And, you know, many of my conversations, yeah, I saw you were doing this. And I saw, it's nice for me to be able to see what my family and friends are up to, right? From that perspective, it's really nice, right? It becomes a whole different thing. And there's nothing wrong that if you have, that Allah has blessed you with something, you know, whatever it may be, that you, it's actually in agreement with Islam that you are grateful to Allah, and you proclaim and you are openly grateful for Allah for the blessings and the bounties that He has given you. However, you also have to realize that you don't want to create envy and you don't want to create jealousy amongst people. This is also very dangerous. You have to be aware of the evil eye, you know, which is a reality, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. Evil eye is a reality. So I guess there's a balance to be made. I think at the end of the day, you know, it all comes back to your intention. You need to think about why you are doing it. What are you doing it for? What's your purpose? Is it a means of you expressing your gratitude to Allah and helping others to be grateful to Allah as well? So if, you know, if that's part of the reason why you're doing it, or keeping in touch with your family and your friends, you know, then alhamdulillah, it can be a good thing. But, you know, if it's like showing off, if it's like that's what you're doing, you're showing off. If it's trying, you know, you want to show people, oh, look at me, look at this place I'm at, look at this, and then you're inviting disaster for yourself. So it's really, you know, like a lot of these things, it comes down to what's your intention, what really is your intention, you know? Yeah, so that's it really. Allahu alim. Allah knows best.
Jazakallah khair. We've got a question here come up on the chat, which probably many parents can, it may well resonate with a lot of parents. How can you control your children's use of social media if they are an adult and still living with you? Confiscating devices for younger children is easy, but as they get older, they claim that it is their right to do what they want freely. At what age do they
absolutely
have the right to listen?
It is their right. Just do it somewhere else, not in my house. I mean, look, it's true, right? They have the right, but, you know, you also have the right to throw them out and tell them go somewhere else. Like, at the end of the day, your house has rules. And the problem is, if you have a mixed group of children in the house, right? It's not a right. It's not a human right. It's not a right that Allah has given them. It's not even a right necessarily, by the way, that society has given them. At the end of the day, if a person is living in your house, you have rules in your house. They need to respect those rules. And that's what needs to be understood, right? It's up to you how much you're ready to put up with and how much you're ready to tolerate. I have a particular philosophy. It's my philosophy. It may not work for you. I believe once children are not children anymore, once they're adults, you need to treat them differently. That's my personal philosophy. That's what I believe. But there's things that I would not tolerate in my house. It doesn't matter. You know, if my child, even if that child is an adult, came into my house and did certain things, I would not put up with it. I would say, that won't be tolerated. If someone wants to come to my house and stay in my house, one of my children, they'll have to pray. That's it. I mean, that's what you do when you're with me. You pray in my house. That's what we do. We pray 5 times a day. If you're not ready to do that, you're not really welcome here. So, you know, I have my criterion. I have my rules, right? No, when my children, for me personally, my children are, you know, adult. I don't look at it as my job to monitor their social media anymore. I will advise them and talk to them like I would any friend or any colleague or anyone. I do treat my children differently as adults. That's how I behave. But it's not right. It's not correct for them to say it's their right. But you know, brothers and sisters, mums and dads, you have to navigate this. You know, it's very difficult. It is not easy. It's more difficult if, you know, the two parents, for example, don't see eye to eye. If you have a different outlook or a different philosophy, it's very challenging. I'm afraid I don't have easy answers for you on this. Sorry.
Okay, so we've got 2 more questions before we will have to let you go, unfortunately. The first has come through regarding influencers and social media stars, where children now are seeing this as a means to a quick buck. Rather than knuckle down with their studies, knuckle down with education, etc., etc. Taking photographs, posting them up, that's just the way to go these days to earn a crust. Now, whether that's an honest crust or otherwise, that is what they're seeing these days. Advice would you give these children regarding?
First of all, it is a path. It is something you can do. And it is extremely hard work. It is such hard work. If you think that becoming a social media influencer is a quick buck, you are deluded. These guys work so hard, you can't believe it. Do a bit of research and see what is the average day of just one of these people who travel on social media. They're up at 5, and most of the time they're up at 4 or 5 in the morning. They have to be to catch the golden hour. Do you know what the golden hour is? Well, you better learn what the golden hour is. How much do you know about photography? How much do you know about lighting? You have to learn. How much do you know about video editing, film editing? How much do you know about post-production? How much do you know? Because all of that comes into what it means to be, you know, what it means to, you know, develop stuff on social media. It is really hard work. I just produce a few. I mean, I love going for walks. I love the countryside, you know, but taking a camera out there and filming it all is a whole different kettle of fish. And then you have to come back and edit it and put it all together and make it into an interesting. It is not easy. It is not easy. If you think that's a quick buck, you are an idiot. You're just a fool. In fact, it's so much hard work. A lot of these social media influencers don't even enjoy the places. Half the time, they don't have time. They say, oh, don't get me wrong, it's amazing, I'm going to all these places. But literally, they're in the airport, they land, they're there for a couple of days. Most of the time, it's work, work, work. That, you know, that's it. They're not really, most of the time, even enjoying those places like you imagine, you know, they are. So don't be deluded into thinking that being a social media influencer is a way to make a quick buck. It is not. It is just another graft. It is more hard work, right? And you have to be absolutely sure that whatever you're doing, it's not enough to enjoy it. It's not enough to love it. You actually literally need to be nutters about it. And even then, believe me, if you turn it into a job, for many people, they just lose interest in it, because once it becomes their job, they don't feel passionate about it anymore. So to be honest, it's like, yeah, fine, but don't delude yourself into thinking this is going to be something that's easy or even necessarily fun. It is really, really, really hard work. That's what it is.
Okay, and just almost aligned with this about influencers, last question is, has come through asking this. Influencers and coaches have become very popular amongst Muslims. Is this a way that is allowed to impart knowledge, or shouldn't we take knowledge from the knowledgeable?
Well, I mean, you know, ideally the people who are in this position would have knowledge. Like at the end of the day, I do find it, you know, I must admit, I find it amusing to find a 20-year-old, 22-year-old guy out there on social media. And mashallah, I mean, you know, he may have memorized more Quran than me and whatever, but he's giving, you know, advice about marriage. I'm just thinking, mashallah. I mean, I'm sure you know something about marriage from, you know, the book and the sunnah, but I just find that amusing, right? So, I mean, look, I mean, the ways of people learning knowledge has changed. It's changed a lot. The old traditional format of sitting down with a sheikh like they used to, you know, in the early days of Islam, it barely exists anymore. Like even a lot of people now, they go to a university or a Darul Uloom, and those are not traditional methods. They're maybe traditional compared to Instagram influencers and life coaches, but they're not traditional in the sense that that's not how it was done in the time of the Prophet or even the first 3 generations. So there's constant changes and there's constant fluxes going on. Anyone who wants to be an influencer or a coach, you know, you need to make sure that you know what you're talking about. I mean, as long as you know what you're talking about and you've studied and you understand it and you keep to your lane, it's fine, not a problem. Keep to your lane, alhamdulillah, it's not a problem, inshallah. It's a good thing. What I would like to see as well is, you know, more people with knowledge taking those roles up as well. But, you know, usually they're, you know, busy doing other stuff. The other thing that could happen is that those people who are those coaches and are those influencers, which is fine. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a good thing. I think it's really great that there are, you know, Muslims out there encouraging other people to live their best life from an Islamic perspective. That's really good. But they should have strong connections themselves with ulama. So, you know, if you want someone to be your coach and, you know, like people have asked me, can you coach me? And it's like, are you joking? I don't have time for that, right? But, you know, but if someone had a strong connection, try to find someone or people who have strong connection with the ulama themselves, that, you know, so they're not just talking from their head. If they have an issue that's a bit complicated, they will have someone to go to who, you know, has got knowledge, who can give the right answers and direct them in the right way. Otherwise, to be honest, I think it's good. I think it's positive. I'm, to be honest, mostly a big supporter of it, inshallah, because at the end of the day, it's leading people in a positive direction, which is, I think, what we need. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah feek.
Jazakallah khair for your time. Inshallah, this is not the only time we see you on here. I'll try and twist your arm again, or twist Abdullah's arm again. But just to tell everyone to continue making dua for this project that we have started on here, and may it be of benefit to all of us. Alhamdulillah, you know, we're reaching far and wide, going up to 6 countries now, including places like Russia and India. So inshallah, that continues going. We had a healthy number of participants on today's session. I'm sure it's because AbdurRaheem Green was here, but, you know, inshallah, that continues. Sheikh, can you please close the session with a dua?
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
جزاك الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.